Something really common that you hear in the trans community is about people's dysphoria shifting, especially after top surgery. What I mean by dysphoria shifting is when someone's dysphoria shifts from one thing, such as their voice, to another, such as their chest. Let us know in the comments if you've experienced this, and here is my take. Hi there, I'm Sam. I talk about my experiences as a queer trans man and as someone with chronic illness. If that sounds like something you want to hear or know more about, then please do click subscribe. Shifting dysphoria seems to be something that's actually quite common, and having experienced it myself, I've figured out ways to cope, and I think I might understand why it's happening, or at least in the case of myself. My story with shifting dysphoria started not long after I started testosterone. Before I started T, I did have chest dysphoria, but it wasn't anywhere near as bad as the dysphoria around my voice. My voice was a thing that was always outing me, and so my conscious dysphoria was always really focused on that. This meant that a few months into starting testosterone, when my voice dropped, it felt like suddenly all of the focus was on my chest. It felt kind of like the worst thing ever, and like I didn't know how I was going to be able to cope with it. It didn't exactly happen overnight, but it did still feel really sudden to me. I honestly didn't know that I could feel dysphoria like it. I was privileged in that I could pay for my top surgery privately, and I managed to get it quite quickly. Now initially, I felt completely free. I was on a complete and utter high, and I felt like no matter what happened with my transition going forward, I was ultimately in a really, really good place. And mostly that hasn't changed. I think getting top surgery was like the best thing that I've done for myself, and ultimately the most freeing thing that I have done as part of my transition. Whilst I knew that there were other sort of feminine parts of me that I didn't really like, they didn't seem to bother me so much, until suddenly they did. My hip dysphoria has been pretty constant, but it was the lower dysphoria that really surprised me. It hit really hard, and the thing that was sort of confusing to me was the fact that I don't completely hate what I've got going on down there, it's just that it doesn't really match up with my gender. So my feelings around it are a bit confusing, and deciding whether or not I want lower surgery and what type I want has been quite a bit of a process. Waiting for GIC appointments at this point was hell, especially with the knowledge that it would be quite a bit of a wait between all of them. And then the panorama came around and completely threw everything out of whack. So why did my dysphoria shift like this? To some people, and to me anyways, it feels quite obvious. It's essentially just a shift in priority. When you have one issue that feels like it's been resolved, your mind skips onto the next thing that it could be working on to fix and improve. As with most things in life, it's often easier to focus on the negatives than celebrate the positives, and honestly, it often felt like the joys of the positives just didn't last as long as the heavy weight of the negatives, especially when it comes to dysphoria. But then how do you cope with that? At the risk of sounding a little woo-woo, I genuinely find that practicing gratitude helps. I know it can be difficult, and it's definitely easier said than done, but even in the early days, there's definitely things that can be found to be grateful for. Even if you're pretty, perhaps you love your taste in fashion and how masculine it makes you look, or you love to style your hair, there's probably something that does affirm your gender for you. And it's important to be grateful for it, especially in the times that are tough. At times when the suckiness of dysphoria gets too much, I remind myself that it's okay for me to feel it. I embrace it, and then I try and look at what I can and can't control in the situation. It won't work miracles, it's not going to solve everything, but I personally find that in those situations it's really helpful to look at it with that mindset, and it can sometimes lessen the frustration for me at least. Generally, working around my mindset and reading into a lot of stoicism has helped me manage and cope with this so much better, and I do really recommend it for those of you that are interested. But sometimes I'll just angrily journal, or I'll rant to someone who I trust. Sometimes I'll even cry, although that is now quite rare, and I'm really grateful for that. It can be hard to find what works for you, but I hope some of these things have given you some ideas, and hopefully you can find something that can help you in those moments when you need it. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've been able to find this in some way helpful. Did you find that a shifting in dysphoria happened to you? Did you find really good methods of coping? Do let us know in the comments and share with the community. Please like and subscribe if you want to keep updated, and I will see you all next time.